Hey guys, it's Mike, another GoG Guardians video. Today we're going to look at Guardian gear, the specific gear you get in the Endless store. And I did want to give a shout out to Woody over here on Medium. He put together an amazing article that kind of breaks down where to get it, how to get it, how to level it up, and then what all of the potential stats are on that gear. So if you have a chance, check out Medium, give Woody a follow and a like. He did an amazing job, put some serious time and energy into this. And I think he might actually have a YouTube channel as well. But thank you, Woody. We really appreciate your efforts here. You can go through and read all these pieces here. What we're going to focus on today is the Guardian gear and abilities. And as we scroll through here, you can see he's broken it down by legendaries and by epics. Today, we're just going to take a look at legendaries, and we're just going to look at the core 1 legendaries in the game. Obviously, if you happen to have a Leah, or if you happen to have a Cyrus, all those different pieces can benefit you, and I would highly recommend checking out Woody's article here and seeing what you're looking for. But for the purpose of all people involved and what majority of people have, we're going to take a peek at the actual pieces of core 1 characters in the game. So we're going to start with Grisell's Amulet. So the way that the Guardian gear works is you have the ability to enhance any of these skill sets on the side. So for legendary characters, you have 4 skills, and for epic characters, you have 3. So that'll be the different amount of chances you have to increase those options. And then as a main stat, you can get attack, defense, or HP. So in Grisell's case, attack is probably going to be the best case scenario because on her psychic link, she's actually healing the person she links with by 50% of her attack power. So the higher her attack is, the bigger those heals are going to be. Also, obviously, she's going to do more damage, and she is kind of sneaky damage with the hide and sneak and menacing glance attacks. So that is probably the best way to go, but having her be more durable is never a bad thing, so HP and defense would definitely work here, but I think if you had a choice, you'd kind of aim for that attack percent. As far as the possible enhancements, if we are enhancing the Ghost ability, we're going to be transferring energy, also increase the linked ally's attack by 50% for 5 seconds. So every time she transfers the energy over to the linked ally, she's also going to be increasing their attack by 50%. Which is a pretty large amount, and that's typically going to be the person she's following is going to be your highest combat power. So that's typically going to be your damage dealer. So by giving them 50% more attack power, they're just going to hit that much harder. So I think Ghost is by far and away the best one you're hoping for. On Menacing Glance, Fear decreases defense by 90%. So when she does put this Fear ability on the enemy, they're also going to have their defense decrease by 90%, which is obviously a good thing as well. Hide and Seek, the stunned enemy suffers 50% more damage. So she's placing the stun on, so for 3 seconds, that enemy is going to have 50% more damage onto them, which is also not going to be a bad way to go either. Psychic Link heals Grisell as well as their linked ally. So now she's not just healing the ally, she's also healing herself. So if I had a choice, I think Ghost would definitely take the cake for me, just getting more damage out there. Secondly, I'd be looking at Psychic Link because I think adding heals to her as well as her ally is going to take a lot of pressure off your healer and help you stay alive. But any of these abilities obviously are going to help. But ideally when Gruff's Forge comes into the game, we'll have the ability to re-roll some of these stats. We don't know if we'll get the main stat or the secondary stat, but it sounds like we'll be able to re-roll some of these and actually make the piece that we want out of that legendary piece. If you didn't know, you pick these pieces up in the Endless store utilizing 6,000 Endless tokens for legendary pieces. It's 3,000 Endless tokens for epic pieces. And then you purchase the Star Stones and Cosmic Stones in the Endless store as well to actually upgrade them and level them up. Alright, so if we move on to Ashwyn's sword, recommended staff is attack. He is an assassin, so that makes pretty much sense that you'd want to give him with as much attack as possible. He does also do some self-healing with crit damage in his kit, so durability is always a benefit for assassins, but ideally they're packing as much of a punch as they can. So the first ability enhancement is Rogue's Rampage, increases the base number of hits to 8. So it starts at 6 and then it can keep going depending on how many of those hits are critical. So this one can definitely help get those extra crits, and if your base is 8 and you miss crit on all of them, that's really unfortunate, but you're probably going to get up to 12 every time because only half of them have to crit in order to get to 12, because it increases that number by 1 every time he does a crit. So you're basically going to be maximizing 12 hits out of that ability every time, more often than not, if you have the right gear on them. So that's going to be a pretty big winner. Blitz increases attack speed by 25% for 5 seconds. So the Blitz ability by itself increases his crit rate by 25%, but this is also going to increase his attack speed by 25% for those same 5 seconds. Just making him work through his abilities a little faster, which not a bad thing either. Menacing Mark, Ashwyn also gains a shield for 20% of current HP for 6 seconds. So it's just adding a shield to him for 20% of his current HP, which could be beneficial and help keeping him alive. The struggle with that is if his current HP is 5, he's going to get a shield for 1 HP, which is pretty garbage. So if he had 20% of his max HP, I think that would be a little more effective. But depending on how survivable he is and how high his health is when he does that ability, it could be a pretty good heal. Or a pretty good shield, I'm sorry, not a heal. And then Mortal Levy, each critical hit also recovers 50% energy. And with the critical hit, he's actually going to be getting HP, 5% HP, and it stacks up to 9% when you get him maxed out. So that's going to be a great way for him to keep himself alive, but also recovering 50% energy. It's going to roll him through his abilities to get back to Rogue's Rampage. So for me personally, and I think Woody agrees, Mortal Levy is going to be the one that you're really hoping for, because you're going to be basically getting back to his Rampage ability more frequently, because every time he hits a crit, you're going to get 50% energy. So I think that's going to be a big win for Ashwyn. Next, we have Ennara's Charm. Recommended stat buff would be attack. I think as far as most people building Ennara, they are building her as a damage dealer. So I think attack is probably the right choice. She is a back row damage dealer, so she doesn't really need to be super survivable. But obviously assassins and so forth come back there and they will do damage to her, so having her with extra defense or HP wouldn't be the end of the world. But I will say that her attacks are a little soft, so having the extra attack percent here is probably the way to go. Possible abilities to enhance. You got Umbral Storm. Damage taken in the Eye of the Storm is increased by 50%. So during her AoE ability, if somebody's in the Eye of that storm, they're going to get an increase of 50% damage. So the next one is Tornado. Enemies trapped in the tornado take an extra 50% damage. So you're just going to be adding more damage to those folks that are in that tornado. So the next one is Dark Skies. Lightning will also stun for 2 seconds. This is kind of a cool ability because it is single target, but for 10 seconds, anybody that runs their ultimate ability will be hit by this darkened sky. And so if they have this ability as well, will also be stunned. Now the reality is you're stunning people after they're doing their damage. So it's probably not quite as effective as it could be because they've pretty much hit you pretty hard. But if you happen to survive it, it will slow them down to get to their next one. And the last one, Femme Fatale. Any single hit damage that exceeds 15% of Ennara's max HP will trigger Femme Fatale, which I'm not entirely sure what that means, because Femme Fatale is any single hit damage that exceeds 25% of Ennara's HP is reduced by 30%. So I guess it's lowering this percentage. So instead of having to exceed 25%, it only has to exceed 15%, and then it'll be reduced by 30%. Some of these things are kind of weirdly worded, or maybe I'm just confused. I don't know, one of the two. But so I think they're all going to be a benefit. But I think if you're building her as a damage dealer, I think the Umbral Storm would probably be the way I would lean, or Tornado. But if it's more about crowd control, I think the Dark Skies has some ability, especially if you bring her alongside like a Tuskrog. So he's doing his 2-second stun, and then she's also providing some stuns to people running their ultimates. So that could be a pretty cool combination, but I don't know that there's a hands-down winner for Ennara, but I think it just kind of depends on how you're using her. So next we have Thorit's Mask. The recommended buff there is going to be attack percent. I think the reason for that is on the Fortifying of Fruit. He does heals based on his attack. So the higher his attack is, he will be healing your allies a little more with some of these fruits, and obviously doing a little more damage when he does attack. And he's a back row support champion, so he's probably not going to need a lot of defense and HP to stay alive. Although durability on support champions is never a bad thing. But I think if you could pick, you'd lean towards attack. if we look at the possible enhancements, we have Carnival Celerity removes control effects on allies. So if we look at the Carnival Celerity as it is, for 5 seconds, all allies have the attack speed increased by 100%. So this would also remove any control effects on them. So that would be pretty good, assuming they have controlling effects on them, which is probably fairly rare. Fortified Fruit, Thorit also gains the fruit's effect. So instead of just helping the ally that he randomly selected, he's also going to help himself, which is going to make this ability a little more viable, but still it's not affecting everybody. It's just going to be him and one other ally. And then Masked Marvel, Thorit also gains the effects of Masked Marvel. So again, he's randomly selecting a champion, and then he's going to gain the same effect as they do. And Mimed Moves transfers 30% of Thorit's attack to the linked ally. So this is kind of a weird one where it says transfers. I'm assuming that actually does remove it from him, so he's going to be doing basically 70% damage. But in Mimed Moves, at the start of battle, he links with the ally with the highest attack. So giving them 30% of his attack, I think, is going to be the best win. And I think it's a way of pulling some RNG out of his kit, because you can actually determine who has the highest attack and getting an extra 30% of Thorit's attack, which is another reason this would be good to have the attack here. So for me, Mimed Moves would be the way to go if you're going to utilize Thorit. But honestly, he's just got so much RNG in his kit, it's hard to count on him for anything, because you never know what he's going to do. But that being said, you could buff your ultimate attack power person by 30% of his attack as well, which could be pretty good. Next, we have Tybor's Crest. Recommended stat buff is HP percent. I think, honestly, as squishy as he is, I think defense, HP would both be equally viable here. But it just kind of depends on how you're building him. He doesn't really have anything in his kit that specifically calls out a high HP, as far as like transferring HP to somebody or doing damage to somebody or anything like that. If we did get the Rendering Strikes, he gains 70% damage reduction. So currently he's control 5 hacking attacks, so he's going to get damage reduction while he's doing this ability. So that's pretty good, because I mean that's quite a bit of damage reduction, although it's just during this ability, and as long as it takes him to hit an enemy 5 times. Body Slam, the hurled enemies also take 70% more damage for 3 seconds. So this is where he grabs the enemy, throws them over the top of them, and then they go to dizzy for 3 seconds. But they'll be kind of in front of your back row. So your back row damage dealers will do a little more damage to them with 70% of their defense being gone. Or I guess they're going to get 70% more damage on them. So that could be a good way to kind of get a little extra damage going on. So Reckless Abandon cleanses all debuffs from Tybor, which is going to be a benefit. He also has Resilient Constitution, where he's cleansing poisons off him, but this would be additional debuffs and so forth. Resilient Constitution, if poison is cleansed, increase the defense by 70% for 3 seconds. So not only will he get the HP from the cleanse, he will also get a significant boost to his defense. The reality there, I mean, I remember him being squishy, so having the extra defense I think would be a big win. But he has to cleanse a poison, which is kind of a niche scenario. Tybor overall is just kind of a niche character. I don't know that he really has a lot of use cases, and I think there's better warriors in the game that do more functional things. So I don't know that I really would have a preference in this space. So in Woody's analysis, he says that Rendering Strikes is probably the best. But he's kind of saying a little bit of the same I'm saying, where it's like he just doesn't have a lot of use cases. Next, we have Oxellus Eye. And this is looking for a recommended of attack or HP in that space. I would be curious when he's specifying HP over defense. Like Woody really breaks down some of the stuff behind the scenes. So there might be, I get the question sometimes, like what's better, having HP or defense? And I think that it's kind of 6 one way, half a dozen the other, depending on, I'm assuming, the way that they code it in the game. Where if you have 100,000 HP is probably the equivalent of 5,000 defense or something like that. And then I'm assuming the gear is coded comparably. But there are times in the kit where it calls out specific things that will benefit that particular champion if they have extra HP. Like Flicks, you definitely want HP, because all of her heals are based on her max HP. So having her in defense, although it would probably make her just as durable, the HP has that added benefit. So I'm not sure how the coding is in the game between the HP and the defense, but typically they're going to be fairly comparable. But Woody might have an article on that. I might have to look into it. But I do appreciate it. It seems like he really breaks down a lot of great things. So again, shout out to Woody. Check him out. He does a great job. As far as the possible enhancements on the skills, if we look at Replicant, the clone explodes as it vanishes, dealing 50% of attack as magic damage to nearby enemies. So it basically creates almost a localized area damage that's 50% of attack. So it's going to be a pretty weak hit, but it is there. Chromatic Shift, red. So if you don't know, Oxellus, when he goes to Chromatic Shift, he turns red or he turns blue, and it makes him immune to either physical damage or immune to magic damage. So in the Chromatic Shift, when he's red, allies recover 50% of attack as HP every second. And when he's blue, allies gain 50 energy for every second. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that's going to be the best. That seems to be pretty cool, actually. So basically, as he's going back and forth between red and blue, he's either healing your allies with all the damage that he's not taking, or he's increasing their abilities to get back to their ultimate abilities. So that's pretty fun. Lullaby reduces enemy attack by 20%. So he's just going to have that added benefit of reducing their attack. So I'll make it a little more durable and so forth. And then on Shared Fate, the link enemy has 50% less HP recovery. So yeah, this is kind of weird in his kit. When he links with an enemy, not an ally. And then when Oxellus takes damage, the linked enemy takes 40% of that damage. So as he's getting beat up, he's also passing that beating onto the enemy that he linked up with. So in this case, it'd be 50% less HP recovery as well. So if the enemy is healing that particular enemy he's linked to, they're going to get 50% of those heals. So I'm going to say hands down, Chromatic Shift is going to be the way to go. And it looks like Woody agrees with that. I think that would actually potentially make him somewhat useful. There's still like RNG to it as far as heals versus energy gain, but both of those things are going to be effective and both of those things are going to do well. I'd be curious if it would be good enough. I still think with the RNG and the rest of his kit, from Replicant picking Ennara or Thorit or Tamamo, I do feel like I don't know. I haven't found a lot of use cases for Oxellus. I do like him as a champ. He's kind of a cool champ, but I don't really ever use him because I think there's better choices. And last but not least, we've got Atticus. Now on Woody's list here, he's not showing, I think it's Atticus's goggles. They were briefly in the game for a few days and then they went away and they haven't come back. So maybe that's part of the reason why they're not on this list yet. But if we take a look at his kit, Bombs Away potentially could do maybe extra damage or something along those lines. It would be amazing if he didn't overthrow the enemy with this ability, but I doubt that's going to be an increase to his, one of the subs on the gear for him. Smokescreen, he does evasion is increased, so it could also increase potential healing or defense or something like that. Landmine, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe doing more damage or increasing the stun, or maybe some other side effect that it also does where they become susceptible to more damage. And Gambit, where he has a chance for knockback. Now, personally, I think Gambit would be, if it increases his chance of causing knockback, that could be a huge win. Because if you can get some knockbacks into those mines that he throws, these mines do a lot of damage. And they do, when you get them leveled up, they're 380% of attack. So you can build these to be pretty impactful. But it's a matter of getting enemies to fall and hit them. So you need like an AoE knockback like Ennara or Aloria. I got in Arena with an Aloria and Atticus, where Aloria ran her ability, took my team right back into the mines and basically killed my entire team. So that was kind of a cool combination of things. But if you could build some of that knockback into his kit where he's getting more percentage chance of causing that knockback, or adding knockback to bombs away, or something like that, I think that could be a really big win. So when we get more information about Atticus's goggles, we'll touch base. But that covers all of the Core 1 legendaries in the game currently, the gear they have, and what we're hoping to get. So again, I would like to thank Woody for putting this together. He did a lot of legwork here, and all of the characters that are here are also your pay-to-wins and so forth. So feel free to check out this list. So again, he's on Medium, and he's just under Woody, and he does a lot of great work with GoG Guardians. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much. So that's what I got for you today. I hope you appreciated that and found some of that useful, and I look forward to seeing you next time.